Mike's Daily Podcast.
Episode 1756, I'm your host, Mike Matthews, broadcasting from Cafe Anyway, located somewhere in Podcastro Valleymont, the last place on earth. Check out MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. It is back on like Grey Poupon. I stole that from Grey Proops. I just can't listen to his show anymore, though, because he says the same thing.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Over and over again. Hey, I guess I do too, because I was listening to a podcast from January 1st of this year.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And in it, I talked about how you have to watch how much sugar that you eat. And that's really neat. But I guess I got to beat that because I don't have to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that anymore because it's boring. I want to talk about how this morning, as I drove into work and I got to work, I walked in and it smelled very odd.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
And I cannot locate what the smell is. It's a bizarre smell. And I don't know what it's coming from.
Mike's
I just don't know where.
Daily
It's a mystery.
Podcast.
Mystery smells are fun, aren't they?
Yeah!
So I was talking to someone that used to be on the radio in New York at WJFK. I think, is that New York? Somewhere over there. And he used to work with Don and Mike. And I used to listen to Don and Mike. They were on AM radio back in the 90s. And I used to listen to their show. It was very off the wall, very irreverent. They basically made fun of people that they didn't like. One of the guys did excellent impressions. And I enjoyed listening to the show. But I found out later that one of them's wife died. And he immediately remarried. Immediately got back. Kind of like what Patton Oswalt did. Patton Oswalt's wife died. Very mysteriously just died. And then all of a sudden he's married. And, he writes a book about his daughter missing her mom. And it's sad. Patton Oswalt's very tiny, and he was in Ratatouille and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I will not watch anymore because I am hooked on El Ministerio del Tiempo, which the episode that I watched last night was amazing because one of the King Philips of Spain found the doors that travel through time and went to the future and changed time throughout history, went through all the different periods of history and changed time. It was fascinating.
And here's today's podcast picture.
And that's on Netflix, even though I hate Netflix. But my lovely lady friend's got Netflix, so we watch the Netflix together. Isn't that sweet? Yes. So I have a podcast picture I'll tell you about in a moment. But first, there are some people and dogs like Basil the Boxer there. Yay! He's doing good. He had an exciting weekend where he went to the supermarket. And what else did he do? He watched as I decorated the house with Christmas stuff. I finally pulled the Christmas stuff out on the last day of November. Look who's here.
Hello, Mike Matthews. It's Chely Shoehart, the shop supervisor. We got a lot of nice snow globes here at Cafe Anyway.
Oh, awesome. Look who else is here. Hello, Mike. This is Floyd the Floorman. And I'm offended by what you said.
But if you get offended, that's the way the cookie crumbles. No.
And it's a disgruntled fiddle player, tell you what. What? Wait a minute, that's not me. That's supposed to be... I'm John Deere, the engineer, is what I meant. Anyway. Cafe Anyway. See, I do impressions too, Mike. Very good. That was awesome. All right. But I think that my point was I can't listen to any more stuff about George Herbert Walker Bush. I can't. I do find what's fascinating about him is he did become friends with Bill Clinton later on. That's always amazing to me when two people that fought it out to the death, well, not to the death, but when they fought it out in 92 and Mr. Clinton beats him and we finally get a Democrat back in office after 15 years or 14, and he's like, they're mortal enemies and then they're friends. And it just shows, why can't we be friends? And it sure shows that George H.W. Bush had a kind side. He got the Disability Act passed. So whenever you walk into a bathroom and they've got the stall with the big bars to help people get on and off the pot. That's Mr. H.W. President George Herbert Walker Bush. And then what would Dana Carvey gotten as popular as he did without his George H.W. Bush impression that he used to do? So Apple's stock is going down, and I couldn't be more happy about that. I think it's funny. I don't think I own any Apple stock. I have a 401k that might have some Apple in one of the things I clicked on. But Apple, I hate Apple so much. I was telling someone the other day about how I left Apple. I left Samsung for a while. I had a Samsung, and I loved how it allowed me to do all kinds. Like, I go, I think I want to do this with my phone, and I could go, like, for example, I love it when my ringtone is not the da-da-da-da-da-da, whatever that Nokia thing was, and when I hear that ringing tone, I go nuts. But as we go outside a cafe anyway, where we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcaster Valley, I love the fact that you can, on Samsung phones, pick a song that you've already got on your memory. And I love that because I'll move that around. And you can't do that with Apple phones unless you pay something extra. Whenever you want to do something that they don't, that's out of the norm of Apple, you got to pay extra. And you got to pay extra. Okay, with a Samsung phone, I would like to have a little more memory. Apple, you got to pay for the memory. You got to pay a lot more. So I don't get the whole Apple thing. And people swear by Apple. There's a young lady that I helped with her project a little bit over the weekend. She's in college. She's trying to get into radio. Ha ha! Why, I don't know. And I was helping her with her project, and she's doing all her editing on an Apple computer. Why are you doing that? Well, that's what they told us, to get an Apple product. Somehow Apple's passing money to the teachers to say, hey, here's a little something, something. Tell them to buy all Apple stuff. It's all cool to have an Apple. Oh, somebody I was helping make her podcast. This is an older woman in her 30s. She's older than the one I said earlier. Not that she's an older Anyway, Cafe Anyway, she has an Apple. Anyway. And what's funny is they have Apple products, but yet they don't even know half of what their computer does. They've got it's Apple, it's the name. But why did you buy that? I mean, you're doing something as menial. You're using like only 2% of what that of the capacity of what that computer can do. Oh, but it was in the name. I was a little disappointed. But there are one of the radio stations that I help out with. It's religious, and it's pastors talking about God. And as we stand outside of here, out of Cafe Anyway, outside here, I should say, underneath the stars, in the great canopy of the cosmos, and this one pastor I shall mention made God sound like a jerk. It's interesting how some pastors will mold God in whatever way they want to manipulate the audience in order to get something that they want. Some pastors do this, not all, but that is one of the problems. We need like a board, some kind of a board that reviews pastors and says, hey, maybe you're twisting the words around in the Bible, because a lot of the words can be used in many ways. This is the way I've seen it, and I've had many Christians agree with what I say about that. And they're just like, but, a world without God would be not a world I would want to live in. And that's the argument as it goes. And some pastors are going to get it wrong. They're only human. Now, here's a thought I have for you. Is if you're in a relationship with someone and let's say it's not going very well, are you sleeping more or are you sleeping less together? If you're married and you and your partner are not happy, are you sleeping less or sleeping more? It seems like the happy couples are sleeping less because they're always talking and they're always in bed going blah 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 blah, how was your day, blah blah blah. They have a great relationship. But I don't know. And then there's the insomnia thing. some people just that are in bad relationships have more insomnia. That's a question I was pondering the other day. Oh, and the whole concept, maybe you could set me straight. MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST-1756-Moss, as we are about to tell you what the podcast picture is, I think. About study Bibles. Now, here's something going back to what I was just mentioning about what pastors are saying to possibly manipulate what you're hearing in order to get something out of you, from you. I don't know, for their own gains. And study Bibles make me a little bit curious because you have someone, maybe they have some kind of background in the seminary, maybe they've studied the Bible, but they have a Bible study. So basically they're saying, here's this big book called the Bible. You don't get it because your brain is small. So here, I've told you what it's all about. So use this study Bible. That's how I feel about study Bibles. I don't have the best opinion about those, but it's a thing. They're big study Bibles. Oh, I would like to show you the wonderful, in the podcast picture, the wonderful sunset that I saw on Thanksgiving. This was the view from the restaurant in Moss Beach near Half Moon Bay. Oh, it was such a beautiful sunset. And it was my birthday. It was a wonderful time. I had a great time with my lovely lady friend. See that picture at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. It is back up. And you can also email me, MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Benita, the Disgruntled Fiddle Player, and the Brewmaster. Have an awesome day and an awesome week. Oh, lots of things are going to happen this week, I think. It's going to be a busy first week of December. Woo. Get that. Oh, I have not even put the electrical lights up in the front yard and done my Griswold thing. I got to go do that. So if you'll excuse me, ciao. I'm going to put some stuff up out here and get electrocuted. And what? Oh no! The end.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST.com. Email Mike now at MIKEs-DAILY-PODCAST@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!